Hello aspirants, welcome to AQYS YouTube channel. This session is going to be another episode of our quick revision series Prelims Atulya. Well, so far we have already discussed Harappan civilization, we have already covered Vedic period, and in the last session we discussed about Jainism and Buddhism. This session is going to be extremely important for you. Why? Because we are discussing about Mauryan Empire. This topic is extremely important from your prelims perspective. So let's get started. So friends, after overthrowing the Nandas, Mauryas came to prominence. And this empire came into being when Chandragupta Maurya stepped into the vacuum created by the departure of Alexander of Macedonia from the western borders of India. And Chandragupta Maurya was assisted by Kautilya. So in his rise to power, he was aided and counseled by his chief minister Kautilya. And let me tell you, he could capture the power because of the help of Kautilya. So Kautilya played a massive role in establishing the Mauryan Empire. Now, in order to know about the history of Mauryan rule, we have some sources. Okay, and one of the most important sources is Arthashastra. Now, Arthashastra, we know it is a detailed work on statecraft. It deals with administration, inter-state relations, and governance part. So we get vivid details about Mauryan rule in Arthashastra. Then we have another source, Indica, which was written by Megasthenes. Now he traveled throughout the country and he shared his experience in this book. Then we have some other sources as well. Okay, Puranas, Rajatrangani, which was written by Kalhana. We have Mahabhashya. Okay, and we have some Buddhist literature as well, like Deep Vamsha, Mahavamsha, Ashok Vandana, Milan Pano. So these are some important sources which you can remember for your upcoming prelims. Now we have some epigraphical sources as well. Okay, so here we can remember about Sahagora copper plate, we can remember about Mahasthan copper plate, and these copper plates mention about the granary built during the reign of Chandragupta. So you can remember about these plates. After that, the most important inscription, which is Junagadh inscription. This inscription is the only inscription which mentions the name of both Chandragupta Maurya and Ashoka. So this is very important from your prelims perspective, Junagadh inscription. Okay, now we have some archaeological sources as well. Okay, northern black polished way, and these were found from Kaushambi, Rajghat, Rajgir, Patliputra, etc. Okay, then we found some important sources from Kaushambi and Kumhar near Patna. So you can remember about these archaeological sources. Now in those times, punch-marked coins were used, and these punch-marked coins have been discovered. So here you can remember about copper mashka, you can remember about silver phana, and there was this copper coin as well, which was Katini. Now, I would like to mention about one method, which was die striking method. Now, this die striking method was used for inscribing the coins. So you can remember about this method as well. Now, the most important part as far as Mauryan Empire is concerned, history of Ashoka. Now, history of Ashoka can be reconstructed on the basis of his inscriptions that are classified into major rock edicts, minor rock edicts, and minor pillar edicts and cave inscriptions. Now, it was James Prinsep who first studied his inscriptions in 1837. So this is another important point from the prelims perspective. Remember, James Prinsep deciphered those inscriptions. Okay. Now, which language was used for inscriptions? So here you can remember that Prakrit language, the most common language in those times, that language was used for the inscription. But in the northwestern part, Kharoshthi script. Remember, Kharoshthi script and Aramaic language, these were used in northwestern part and Afghanistan as well. Okay, so these are two important points that you can remember, that Prakrit language, that was the most common language, but in northwestern part and Afghanistan, Kharoshthi script and Aramaic language were used. Now, these major rock edicts, these are 14 in number and these are found at 8 places. So I know it's very difficult to memorize all these places, but you can have little idea. Okay, so you can go through the content and you can try to have little idea. And about minor rock edicts, here you can remember about Yeragudi in Andhra Pradesh, you can remember about Bhabru, Rajasthan. These two are very important, and you can go through these minor rock edicts as well. Now let's talk about the major pillar edicts. Here remember about Loriya Nandangarh. This is very important. It is in Bihar, Champaran, and you can remember about Loriya Araras as well, which is also in Champaran. Okay, so you can go through these pillar edicts as well to have little idea. Okay, and if it is possible, then memorize about Rampurva, Loriya Nandangarh and Loriya Araras. Now, minor pillar edicts we found at Sanchi, Sarnath. Here just remember about Kaushambi minor pillar edict, because the name of Ashoka's wife Karuvaki is mentioned on this pillar. That's why it is also known as Queen's Pillar. And Rumande, that is also very, very important because this pillar gives information about the taxation system of Mauryan Empire. And in those times, remember, there were two types of taxes, Bhag and Bhali. Okay, so you can remember these two types of taxes. Now, let's talk about Ashoka's Dhamma policy. See, initially, Ashoka's practiced Brahmanical religion. But after the Kalinga War, he came in contact with Upagupta. And under the influence of this Buddhist monk, Upagupta, he decided to embrace Buddhism. So, this definition of Dhamma, remember, it is produced by Ashoka in his second and seventh pillar edict. Okay, so in his Dhamma policy, he mentioned a few good points. So you can have little idea about these points like less expenditure, moderation in saving, respect of pupils towards the gurus, proper treatment towards brahmanas and relations, and all these things you can try to remember. Now, how did he propagate Dhamma? Well, as far as the propagation of Dhamma is concerned, we get an idea about the propagation by Dipvamsha and Mahavamsha. Okay, so these two chronicles contain the information about propagators who went to numerous places in order to spread about Dhamma. Okay, and I have mentioned the names of these places. You can go through this content in order to have a little idea about those places. Now let's talk about the Varna system in those times. See, we discussed in early Vedic period that Varna system was not rigid. Okay, it was very flexible. But in later Vedic period, it had become relatively more rigid. But as far as the Varna system in Mauryan society is concerned, it had completely developed during this time. Now let's talk about the condition of women. Well, the condition of women was relatively better as opposed to Vedic age. They had the right to remarry. They had the right to niyog. You must know about niyog as well. Niyog means they could appoint a woman to bear a child. Okay, but remember, they were not allowed to go outside without the prior permission of her husband. Here I would like to highlight about the types of marriages Kautilya talked about. So there were 8 types of marriages in accordance with Kautilya. So you can have a little idea about these marriages too. Now, Kautilya considered, this is a very interesting fact, Kautilya considered divorce as salvation. Okay, so, and here we should know about the categories of women in those times. Some women, they were appointed by the state, some women were the female bodyguards, and some women, they were sent to southern part of the empire. So there were different categories of women, and some women, they were into prostitution. So you can have a little idea about these categories as well. Now let's talk about the sati system and slave system. Well, slave system was prevalent in the society, but as far as the viewpoint of Megasthenes is concerned, according to him, there was no slavery in India, and according to Kautilya, Aryans could not have been slaves in any situation. Okay, and as far as the information about sati system is concerned, Kautilya did not provide any information vis-a-vis sati system. Now, as far as the entertainment is concerned, hunting, acting, magic, drama, painting, these were some sources of entertainment. Now let's try to understand the art and architecture of Mauryan rule. Well, if you recall, in our Harappan civilization session, we spoke about cities which were developed because of their engineering skills. And after the Harappan civilization, there was this long gap. And during Mauryan period, again, art and architecture appeared on the scene again. And during the Vedic and later Vedic period, buildings were made up of impermanent materials. So it was Ashoka who substituted stone for wood, which was the common material for the construction of buildings. Now let's talk about the palaces in those times. The entire palace, I'm talking about the Mauryan palace, it was made up of wood. And it was universally believed to have been erected by supernatural agency. In fact, Megasthenes mentions that towns in those times were surrounded by wooden wall. Here specifically I'm talking about Patliputra, which was the capital city, and this was properly surrounded by wooden walls. And here I would like to highlight about Patanjali. Patanjali mentioned about Chandragupta's Raj Sabha in his Mahabhashya. Mahabhashya was written by Patanjali, and in Mahabhashya he mentioned about Chandragupta's Raj Sabha. So you can go through this slide in order to know more about the remains of palaces in those times. Now let's talk about the remains of stupas. So as far as the origin of stupas is concerned, then origin can be traced back to Vedic and later Vedic times. But considerable number of stupas were built during Mauryan Empire, and specific during Mauryan Empire. And these stupas were influenced by Persian art. You can remember this point, it is very, very important. And stupas, you must remember that it is a symbol of Mahaparinirvana of Buddha. Okay, now let's talk about the famous stupas. So stupa at Bahat, stupa at Sarnath, stupa at Sanchi, and Pipar Hawa stupa. These stupas are very important from the prelims perspective. You can try to memorize. Now let's talk about the rock cut caves. See, the Mauryan period saw the beginning of rock cut cave architecture. And here Barabara caves and Nagarjuni hill caves, these are very, very important. These Barabara caves, these were gifted by Ashoka to Ajivika sect. And interestingly, Nagarjuni hill caves, these were gifted by grandson of Ashoka to monks of Ajivika sect. So these two caves are very, very important from the prelims perspective. Now let's talk about the sculptures in those times. Two of the most famous sculptures of the Mauryan period are Yaksha and Yakshi. And these Yaksha and Yakshi, these were worshipped by all three religions, Jainism, Hinduism and Buddhism. And as far as the mention of Yakshi is concerned, the earliest mention of Yakshi can be found in Silapadikaram or Tamil literature. Here you can remember about torso of the nude male figure which was found at Patna. And Didarganj Yakshi, that is also important, which was also found at Patna at Didarganj Hills. So we have covered almost all significant aspects of this topic. And in the next session, we'll come up with another interesting topic. If you have liked our initiative, you can subscribe our YouTube channel. If you have any suggestions, you can mention in the comment section, and you can subscribe our YouTube channel for more such videos, and you can follow our current affairs, and you can follow our social media platforms for daily current affairs content. So that's all for today's session. I'll see you in the next session. Thank you.